How do you feel about getting feedback at work? I hate it. And you might hate it too. It's not that we don't want feedback because, we know we need feedback. Deep down, we know that that feedback is information about how we're performing or how we're showing up in our job or our life or our relationships. And it's the information we need to learn, to grow, to get better. So we know we need feedback. And yet, when someone, catches you in the hallway or sends you a Slack saying, hey, can I give you some feedback? Right? Our stomach drops. Right? You want to run away or avoid it. At least I know I do. Why is that? Well, I think the most simple explanation is that most of us have had pretty terrible experiences with receiving feedback in the past. And that's because almost all of us are not very good at giving feedback. In fact, I might argue that we are terrible at giving feedback. And as a result, we give terrible feedback, and receiving terrible feedback is not a pleasant experience. It leaves us feeling gross and angry and defensive and hurt. I learned this very clearly at one point in my career when, and I'd certainly had feedback before this moment, but I remember this moment very clearly because it was part of a formal process. It was a big feedback moment for me. I was at the point I was a corporate HR manager reporting to the VP of HR. This was part of my development planning process. She had gone out to talk to her peers to get feedback about my performance, about me, that then we could use to shape my development plan. Decide where I needed to learn, where I needed training or coaching or support or whatever, how I could build on what I was doing well. And so she had gathered up all this information for me, and we had a meeting to sit down and go through it. And I'll be honest, walking into that meeting, I was pretty excited because I'd been conditioned, probably like you were, to crave feedback. Like we were taught that we should crave feedback, get as much as we can, right? That's what will help us grow. So I was looking forward to feedback. I thought there'd be some positive stuff and some stuff that I could use to learn. And so I was excited, jazzed. We sat down and she pulled out this piece of paper that had a whole list of things on it. And I don't remember how many it was. It was a lot, 12, 15 different things that she had collected from all these conversations she'd had. And she started in on the list, and she started reading one after the other, after the other, after the other. And we got about halfway through the list, and I actually stopped her and I asked, is there anything positive on this list? Because to this point in the conversation, every one of these things were things that I was not doing right, or I needed to do differently, or do better, or learn, or that I didn't know how to do. Like, none of it was good. And she stopped and kind of looked at the list, and then she shook her head and was like, not really. And so she finished up the list, and I asked a few questions, but I'll be honest, I did not react well to this list. I still to this day refer to this list as my you suck list. And it was a list of all these things that felt like all she was saying over and over was you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck. 12 different ways, 15 different ways, whatever it was. I left that meeting angry. I left that meeting feeling defeated. I left that meeting feeling hurt and betrayed by my manager. Like all of these things. It was not a positive experience, and I did not handle it well. I'm not going to suggest that the way I handled it was the right way, but the way that feedback was given to me felt like it felt brutal. It felt hurtful. And here's the thing. My boss was the VP of HR. If anybody was going to know how to give feedback, it should be her. And yet, it wasn't delivered very well. I found out later that actually there was context to this feedback that would have made the feedback feel completely different. But that's not how the experience went. And you've probably had an experience like that. Maybe it's your most recent performance appraisal, or maybe it was, some other time where you were getting feedback about a project or a proposal or something that you had done, and you felt like you were given a you suck list. Too often, this is how we approach feedback. right? It's all criticism. It's all just a list of things that you need to do differently and better. And as a result, getting feedback feels terrible. And so we try to avoid it, even though we need it desperately for growth. But it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. And so today I'd like to share with you 3 tips, 3 things that you can start practicing today to make your feedback that you offer to others something that won't trigger that response, that maybe will help them open up to that feedback and be able to use it to grow and benefit from it in the future. So you ready? Here we go. 3 tips. Number 1, the first thing, and this is critically important, is that when you are offering feedback to someone else, make sure you get their permission to give it to them first. So ask for their permission to offer them feedback. Now, this may seem a little counterintuitive because, in fact, the people that are asking you in the hallway or in Slack, hey, can I give you a little feedback? That's actually the right approach to take. Because when you ask someone if you can give them feedback, versus what often happens is you just send off, hey, here's some feedback on your presentation this morning, or hey, here's some feedback on whatever, or in the performance appraisal or performance review process. Nobody ever asks permission to give you feedback. It's just dumped on you. When you get feedback dumped on you without your permission, it doesn't go very well. When someone asks for your permission to offer it and you give them that permission, you're more likely to open to it because you have just said it's okay to give me feedback. So you're more open to it. Number 2, you're also prepared, right? When I've given you permission to offer me feedback, I can mentally prepare myself for the fact that, okay, this might be critical, but I've said that I want it. So I'm going to try to hear it. I'm going to try to capture what I can out of it. So ask for permission always before you offer feedback. That is number 1. That will be a big step in the right direction. Number 2 is to state your intentions. Now, when you are offering feedback, right, the main reason and really the only reason to offer someone else feedback is to be helpful, to be of service to that person, to support that person. So I guess the first checkpoint on this is checking yourself. Is your intention to help? Are you being helpful? Are you being in service to this person? Because if you are not trying to help them, like honestly and sincerely trying to help them, then why are you giving the feedback? You should question that, because if you are not being helpful, then you probably shouldn't offer that feedback. You should check in with yourself about what your real motives are. Assuming you are trying to be helpful, then it's good to put that out there. So as a manager, for example, if I was sitting down with an employee to offer up some feedback, and some feedback that might be hard to hear, or that might be a little critical, or that might be something that is a little sensitive for them, I would always start with setting the context for why I was offering this. And part of that might sound like, hey, as your manager, my job is to help you to be successful. My job is to pay attention to your work and your performance and help you understand how your performance is comparing to what's expected or what might help you be successful and move ahead. And so today I want to offer you up a little bit of feedback that is from me observing you working, and some of it may not be the most fun to hear, but I assure you that the reason I'm offering it to you is because I think it's really important that you be aware of it so that then we can work together so you can learn and adapt and grow to be more successful. So if your manager said that to you prior to giving you some feedback, sure, some feedback's coming that you're probably not going to feel great about, but at least you know that your manager's in this with you, right? I've just reinforced my commitment to you. Same thing if you were offering, some feedback to your significant other or your best friend. You'd start that conversation with, hey, you know how much I care about you and I love you and I want you to be successful. And so because of that, I need to tell you something, right? I need to share some feedback or some insight with you, right? You reinforce the relationship and your commitment. That will make it easier to receive the feedback. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a technique change. And it's using a technique called feed forward instead of feedback. Now, I know it sounds kind of weird and awkward. Feed forward, it took me a while to get used to it. It'll take you a while to get used to it. But don't get hung up on how the word doesn't sound right to you, because the approach is incredibly effective. Here's how it works. When you think about feedback, feedback is what we talked about. It's literally looking backwards. So we're looking at past performance. We're looking at past experiences. We're looking at things that happened in the past. We're criticizing that. We're critiquing it. And then we're offering insights into what went wrong or what went right, whatever. But it's always about past performance. That's what feedback has been traditionally. All the feedback that I talked about earlier, all those feedback experiences that we don't like, that have been bad experiences, all the you suck lists are looking backwards and criticizing you for things that happened in the past over which you have no control. You cannot change those things. There are no redos or do-overs. They're gone, right? So feedback is really disempowering. That's why it feels kind of defeating, and it's not something you can change. Whereas feed forward, on the other hand, focuses on offering up advice or insights or ideas for how that individual might perform better in the future, right? It's tips. It's really invested in helping them to perform differently or to get a different result in the future. And this is something they still have control over. So here's how that sounds. And actually, this is born out of how sports coaches work with athletes. If you think about a sports coach, a basketball coach, right? Just focusing on criticizing a player for what was wrong with the shot they took or the shots they took in the past doesn't necessarily help them shoot better in the future. And a sports coach only wants you to make more baskets in the future. And so when I'm providing coaching there, rather than criticizing you for having your elbow out too far when you're shooting, I'm going to say, hey, let's work on this. I want you to think about keeping your elbow in as you shoot, because that'll keep your alignment better. So when you shoot, try to keep that elbow in, keep it tucked. Right? That's not critical. That's a tip or advice for how to get better results in the future, make more shots. In the workplace, the same approach works. So rather than saying to you, hey, when you presented this morning, you were sharing out your proposal with the group, you didn't make eye contact with anyone at the table. And as a result, nobody knew, you didn't sense what people were doing or if they were connecting. It didn't seem like you knew your material very well. And so I don't know that went very well. That's feedback. Feed forward sounds like this. Hey, number one, you go back, you ask for permission, right? So it would be like, hey, would you be open to hearing a couple of ideas that I jotted down based on your presentation this morning that I think might be helpful to you the next time you present that idea? Who's going to say no to that? We all want ideas or insights into how we could be more successful in the future. So yeah, sure. So then here's feed forward. Next time you present, one of the things that I would really pay attention to is making eye contact with everybody at the table, right? Really trying to connect with them, because when you make eye contact, it'll make sure that you know that they're listening, that whether they're getting, you'll see positive interaction or response. They'll feel more connected. They'll feel confident that you know your materials. Same information, but do you feel the difference? One is oriented towards criticizing past performance. Can't change that. That presentation this morning's gone. The other, same information presented as advice or tips or suggestions for the future, feels more empowering. Like, hey, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. I can do that when I present this next week. Feed forward versus feedback. So let's do what we can to fix feedback. Right? Feedback shouldn't be something that we avoid, that we hate, that makes us feel gross. Feedback is fuel for growth and performance. We need to treat it as such. And by using these 3 techniques, you'll find that your feedback will start being much more effective, and people will be much more open to, when you say to them, hey, can I give you some feedback? They'll be much more likely to say, sure, would love to hear it.